Let's go, girls. Come on.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin and this is Powered Up Talk Radio and we are starting our Soul Search Tuesday starting today. Linda, I'm so excited about our new fall lineup.
I am too. I think the next 10 weeks are going to be dynamite. I think they're going to be good for you and for me and for all of our listeners because we're going to explore almost the unexplorable.
Well, you know, when you talk about unexplorable, it's really interesting to me because all summer long I took hours upon hours to read a lot of these spiritual books, and it was interesting to me how hard it is to put like spiritual practice into words because it's not something, I don't know, it's not something that it's in just your head. It's like your head, your heart, your mind, your body. It's a very big concept.
Well, I think a spiritual practice or just believing in it is something that doesn't go on in your head. I think that's people make that mistake, and they think if they read the books or they hear enough people talk that they are spiritual. But it really is an experiential process, and until you feel it, and until you see the results of what you can do and how powerful you are, it doesn't play. I mean, this is something you've got to feel in your heart and go with it.
You know, it's when you talk about feeling it in your heart, what do you think the biggest blocks are with people with respect to their spiritual practice? Like, I think pain, you know, emotional pain cracks you open like an egg and gets you in touch with your spirit. At least that's the way it felt like for me. What do you think are the biggest stumbling blocks to people when they think about either starting or even considering a spiritual practice?
I think the hardest thing for me, and I think probably for a lot of others, is getting out of your head, thinking too much about it, because it's not a thinking thing, it's a feeling thing, and it's a process of letting go of control, and especially women, letting go of control is a biggie. And that doesn't, surrendering, we hear that word all the time, and it doesn't mean that, all of a sudden you dissolve into a mass of nothingness. It's just about letting go of the control you think you have but you don't have anyway.
Yeah, I was chewing on that, like surrender. It's about surrendering to the things you can't control, and you can't control anything anyway. Where is the line between, we can control our own behaviors, but we can't really control what happens to us. So with respect to our own behaviors, we can choose. I like the word choose. We can choose to have a spiritual practice every day, or make a spiritual practice part of our lives. But before we get into that, I'd love to ask you, what is spirituality? Like, is it the study of God or the study of energy? I keep going around in circles, trying to find out what a good definition is for spirituality.
Well, I think, Sandra, everybody has their own definition, and I don't think there's a good one or a bad one. I know for me, it's the belief that everything that I need is right here inside of me, and that I don't have to go anywhere but myself to find the mysteries of the universe. And I really believe that. I believe that we have the power. We're so much more than we think we are, and that once we can start to believe that, I think it's a lot easier.
It is. I think, well, and let's talk about like answering to a higher power. I know that when I get up every day and I think that I have to answer to a higher power, I feel like I make better choices because it gives me like even a responsibility that, I might forget. When you live in a vacuum and you think there's no reason for everything, we're not connected, there's no higher power, you could make some pretty bad choices for yourself. But do you have to believe in a higher power, do you think, to have a spiritual experience or to have a spiritual bent to your life?
I think that the higher power is us, is me, is you. It's us. I don't know if I think that we have to believe that a piece of that higher power is within us.
So if and this is again where I went turned around all summer long reading these things, trying to understand that, trying to make sense. And I guess maybe what you're talking about is getting out of our head, is that idea that we are one and separate, and the higher power is one and separate. And what you're talking about is that we are all interconnected and we're one. And maybe I should just stop thinking about trying to make sense of it and just feel it. Would that be a fair?
Yes, we've all got that power, that connection. But it's in us. It's not outside of us, and I think that it makes it a big difference between religion and spirituality, because I think in religion you're looking to something outside of you that's bigger and more powerful than you, and I think in spirituality you're knowing that you are that power inside of you, and that and you're trying to develop it, because when you develop it and you find that connection, I think life becomes much easier.
So do you think that a spiritual practice can create contentment with people, happiness in people? Is that what they're talking about when they say, oh, I went to India and rode a bike, and there's Yogi here is poor and living in squalor, and yet he's still content with life? Is that because of his spiritual practice, do you think?
Probably, and making life simpler. But that's not for everybody. Everybody is not going to give up their lives and go and sit on a mountaintop in India. We can't do that. So what we have to do is develop that for ourselves wherever we happen to be. But I don't know. I think a spiritual practice is terrific if you resonate with your spiritual practice, whether it's meditation or yoga or whatever it happens to be. But I don't even know if you need that exact practice to make that connection.
Well, I think everybody starts somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you, I guess, the end result, like I'm a results person. So I look at, when we talk about having this spiritual practice and bringing on these experts, for this coming series, what do you hope to gain from starting a spiritual practice? I know what I hope to gain.
Well, it's what I said. It's that connection and being able to be in that place and letting go and disengaging yourself from any kind of outcome. And that is a key, not to be attached to anything, because when you're not attached to anything, the things that you want to happen more readily when you're not looking for a specific outcome.
But the outcomes may not be what you're striving for.
Well, sometimes they will, and maybe sometimes they won't. But everything is not going to be, things happen in your life, and it's how what are you going to do when they happen, and that's the key. We have no control over what's going to happen a minute from now, or 2 minutes from now, or tomorrow, or a month, or a year. look at Joan Rivers. She went in for an endoscopy, and that was the end of her life.
Right. Go ahead.
So we have no control over that, but we do have control over what we're going to do, how we're going to act. Is it going to turn us upside down, or are we going to kind of let go and not be so crazy when these things happen? I know that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but that's my goal, is just to let go of the control, because I'm a control freak.
But don't you think your control freak aspect of your nature has also made you very successful?
Well, you have to define success. What I'm looking for now in my life at this age is not what I was looking at when I was 35 years old. So everything changes with time, and hopefully you get bigger and smarter. I know I do a birthday practice, so every year on my birthday, at the time I was born, I do a list of what I would love to happen in the following year, my birthday year. And I told my husband, I said, I started doing this 25 years ago, and the list has sure changed on what I really want to happen in my life. I mean, things change. You have a different perspective on life.
Well, I think that's really interesting, Linda. I look forward to talking to you more about that when we come back from the break. My name is Sandra Beck. I'm here with Linda Franklin, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio, and this is the first show in our Soul Search Tuesdays, and we are going to be bringing on in the next coming months experts who are far better versed than Linda and I, but I think it's interesting to talk about where we are right now in our search, and then as we read these books, as the weeks go on and we join our guests, how our viewpoints change. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about spirituality and how it can impact our lives. This is Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin from Powered Up Talk Radio. We will see you after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
Martha Sanchez, the host of the Mommy to Mogul radio show, empowering women to build a successful business, invites you to join her on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At the ripe age of 5, she was already interpreting information in documents and instructions on forms for her immigrant parents. Now, through her experience and those of her guests, she provides you with valuable steps to empower you to reach financial independence. Martha A. Sanchez is a registered nurse with a Bachelor in Nursing and Master's of Business Administration. She's a business coach, speaker, author, and CEO of Moss International, LLC. Her diverse work experience brings you expertise in areas essential to customer service, social media, and budgeting. The Mommy to Mogul radio show furthers her personal mission of empowering women to help them build successful businesses so they can reach financial independence. Join Martha Sanchez, the host of the Mommy to Mogul radio show, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
In today's business world, a helping hand or idea that doesn't come with an invoice is a treasured find. And if that happens to you, then you need to pay it forward to keep other entrepreneurs from making mistakes or getting a raw deal. It's called Paying It Forward with Josephine Girassi, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Central. Josephine is going to have the guests describe their accomplishments, the lessons they've learned, both good and bad, and then sharing those pieces of knowledge as we create a movement of paying it forward. For more information about Josephine, her business, and background, you can go to mymomknowsbest.com. Josephine Girassi has always been a problem solver. She saw this need and has turned it into a movement. It's Paying It Forward with tips, tools, and advice and hard lessons learned. These pieces of knowledge can make a huge difference for you, your business, and others. So join us for Paying It Forward with Josephine Girassi, Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey, this is Sandra, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio, and this is the first in our series of our Soul Search Tuesdays, and they have come about because we have been contacted by a group of spiritual advisors. Linda, I don't know if it's because we had our numerologists on and our astrologists on and, you know, all these different people, but we have gotten a group of experts to come on in the coming weeks to talk to us about their own spiritual journeys. They're authors that have written about their books. And I find it just amazing that when you are thinking about something, it almost calls it to you.
Well, that's if you're in the right space. A lot of things are called, but if you're too busy in your mind, you don't hear them. So that's something that you need to learn anyway. Sometimes I'm so preoccupied in whatever I'm thinking that something wonderful could be happening, and I don't even hear it or see it because I'm so busy with my self-talk.
Well, you know, you're right. I mean, I get the self-talk too, but it's amazing that, you know, there's that, what is that old thing, like when you're ready, the teacher will appear or something like that.
Right. And it's going to be interesting. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to say we're going to have a lot of guests in the next 10 weeks, and some of you are going to you know when you resonate with something or you don't. The guests that we're going to have on next week, Rasha, I resonate with. There's going to be certain guests that we have on that I don't, and it's a personal preference. There's no right or no wrong, and it's going to be interesting to see who resonates with which spiritual teacher.
That's true.
And don't feel bad if you don't resonate. If you don't.
Well, and I didn't understand some of the books. I mean, to be honest, they were really hard for me to understand. And, I didn't, I think it has its own language too.
Well, a lot of it does. But I think that when you find the ones that that hit something in your being, you know it. I mean, another one that I really love is I love listening to the Abraham tapes because it's Esther Hicks, and she just, when she speaks, I just calm down. I mean, I just listen, and listening to her tapes just put me into almost a meditation. I just love laying there and listening to them, and so I know that's good for me. Some of them that are too, but some of them that are too, or they're talking about a spiritual practice and they have to meditate and they have to do this and that. I don't, because that's not what I do or want to do. So I think when you hear it or see it, I think that you know it, and it's not going to be. You're not going to do that with everyone that you see or hear. You just have to listen to your body. I think your body tells you if it's right.
That requires quiet. I think it requires peace. When I think about, what you said about getting the messages, and I think back to, the last couple years, most of my days have been filled with a high conflict divorce, burying my mom, raising these kids. There's not a whole lot of silence there, when you talk about the internal chatter, but then there's also external chatter. And I think there's a thing, I'm going to call it emotional chatter, that when you're suffering or you're in pain or you have anxiety or you have fear, any of those feelings, those seem to have their own voice within inside your head or your soul or your spirit, and it makes it really hard to listen. How do you get into a mode? Like, do you have a practice that puts you in a space to listen?
No, I don't. I mean, a quiet is definitely one of them, which is, I think it's very important. But look, I know you have to know yourself, and you know what triggers you. I know right now in my life there's a lot of stuff going on, so I'm thinking, oh, this needs to get done, and this needs to get done, and this, oh, and I forgot that, and that needs to get done, and all of this has to be done by the end of the year, and da 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 da. And I work myself into a tizzy, thinking of all the things that need to be done instead of just going at them and just doing it. Because if you just do it and don't get yourself, the thinking part is worse than the doing part, because I get all, I get unnerved. And so what I've been doing lately is and you can feel when you're getting unnerved. I mean, your mind is just going a million miles a minute. Your body stiffens up. It's, it's a gut reaction. I think, okay, this is what I do. I say, I'm in my Linda Franklin mode now, but let me get out of my Linda Franklin mode. And I'm going to say the oneness mode, because Rasha and oneness are going to be on next week, because when I'm in oneness, nothing is overwhelming. Everything is doable, and everything will work out just the way it's supposed to work out.
Interesting. Well, that I would say is a practice, right there is your practice,
Yeah,
I love that.
It doesn't work all the time, but a lot of times it does. But I'm very aware of it. Maybe awareness is the first step towards for it really to start to be part of your being. Because I'm certainly aware when I'm in crazy mode, and I don't like it. It feels horrible. I hate being in crazy mode. Now, you can be busy but not being crazy, and I think there's a difference there, too. I was very busy today, but I wasn't crazy. But when you go into crazy mode and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because even when it doesn't feel good, that's when I stop, because I say, whatever comes from what I'm doing when I'm in this frame of mind or body or spirit, it's going to be more of the same. It's not going to be good. So just stop. Give yourself a rest and regroup.
What I'm beginning to understand when you talked about, we are all one, and, there's the higher power or whatever resides within us, and, we just have to listen to our inner chatter and stuff like that. What I'm hearing you say is that you need to find individually for you how to get to that calm place where you can listen to yourself, even, to know that you're in the crazy mode. Because I know when I get crazy busy, I can get crazy anxious, crazy running around, and I'm so tired. But by the time I sit down to just have a minute of peace, I fall asleep. And so I think for me, starting on a spiritual practice would be to find a place or a time or a few minutes where I'm not exhausted, where I'm not pulled in a million directions, to monitor my own crazy, if you will, and then what? Listen for messages? I don't know what to do next.
No, you don't do anything. Just being calm and feeling better is a step above where you were before. You may not hear a message, you may not do anything, but at least you're honoring yourself. Crazy is not a good place to be, because it's not good for your body, your mind, or your spirit. So, and just sometimes, like you say, you're not even recognizing that you're doing what you're doing, but you get so tired, then you have to, you go to bed and you fall asleep. I'm at the point now when it feels so bad to be in crazy that, I have to pay attention to.
Well, I think
does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Well, and I think we all need, no matter how busy we are or not busy, or what stage we are in our life, we have to pay attention to that. I think that is what would keep us from going down the wrong road or making choices for ourselves that we may not make if we're in a different space.
Yes, and then when we come back from the break, we can talk about this too. It's very, and I can give you some examples of friends that have talked to me about it. Is not to get involved in other people's crazy, because people that are crazy mode wanna drag you in, and then if you don't get dragged in, then they look at you like what's wrong with you? You're not participating in this. Isn't it important to you? And they make you feel guilty for not being in the crazy place.
Right, or your anxiety becomes my anxiety. I found that living with a person who had a lot of anxiety, so I found myself pulling a lot of that anxiety into my own world. And I find this with some of the people I work with. You've got people, bosses or coworkers who just are crazy making because they're so stressed out. They have so much anxiety, and that anxiety is almost like a virus. It needs to go somewhere to feed off, and it does feed off other people. And I think when I'm around a lot of high anxiety people, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, and I'm at the point of I don't want to be there. I don't want to be around them, and so I withdraw. Maybe not all the time, but when they're doing something, if they're talking about something that involves me, I don't participate because I don't want to. I mean, it's just as easy as that. I don't want to go to their crazy place.
Well, you know what? That's why we're here on Powered Up Talk Radio, because we want to call crazy out of the bushes, give it a beating, and send it on its way. Because, when you're raising kids, when you're building your career, when you're hitting midlife, when you're changing, your body's changing, all these things can be crazy making on top of a good day. So one of the things that I love about co-hosting the show with Linda is she's always willing to talk, as I am, about what it's really like to begin a spiritual journey. And I know we're kind of going all over the map here, but that's what you do when you're in the beginning of studying something and making changes in your life. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more with Linda Franklin about some of her friends and the journeys that they've been on and what she's learned from them. So you're going to want to join us more after the break.
Powered Up with Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
In today's business world, a helping hand or idea that doesn't come with an invoice is a treasured find. And if that happens to you, then you need to pay it forward to keep other entrepreneurs from making mistakes or getting a raw deal. It's called Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Central. Josephine is going to have the guests describe their accomplishments, the lessons they've learned, both good and bad, and then sharing those pieces of knowledge as we create a movement of paying it forward. For more information about Josephine, her business, and background, you can go to mymomknowsbest.com. Josephine Gerasi has always been a problem solver. She saw this need and has turned it into a movement. It's Paying It Forward with tips, tools, and advice and hard lessons learned. These pieces of knowledge can make a huge difference for you, your business, and others. So join us for Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet.com. Mark Lipinski is coming to TogiNet. It's Creative Mojo with Mark Lipinski, a live 2-hour show Wednesday afternoon starting at 2 Central on TogiNet.com. Creative Mojo. It's fun, entertaining, informative, inspirational, and illuminating. Lipinski has worked on such shows as Oprah, The View, The Joan Rivers Show, and Ricky Lake. He's busy, but he's got the drive to share with Creative Mojo, dedicated to the modern crafter and crafting lifestyle. Dive into the info and enjoy everything from celebs to entertainment news to recipes, quilting and needlework, knitting, painting, woodworking, Christmas crafts, and so much more. This show boldly encourages you to discover and harness your own creative spirit by living creatively every day. For more on Mark and the show, check out marklipinski.com. Don't miss the fun. It's Creative Mojo with Mark Lipinski, Wednesday afternoon starting at 2 Central on TogiNet.com.
We're back back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
This is for all you girls about 42.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and my gosh, we're already halfway through the show on our Soul Search Tuesday series, and we've been talking today about spiritual journeys. Why do we go on them? What do we hope to achieve from them? And we got on the topic of how we get lost in our own chatter, and this is beyond what we talk about, just the chattering in your head that says, oh my God, you're really not going to wear that, are you? This gets down to, the crazy making behaviors that have to do with anxiety and fear. And I know, when it's text time or it's bill paying, we can all get into that, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough money? And then all these fears come in, and then the fears influence your other thoughts, and then if you surround yourself with people who are crazy making, I seem to attract them. Maybe I look for them. I don't know, whatever reason. I used to have a lot of crazy making people in my life, people with high anxiety, people with really, really strong driven opinions, and they were overwhelming to me. It was exhausting. And when I changed my life, I started to clear out a lot of the people, and I started putting walls up, Linda, where your anxiety cannot become my anxiety. And that was something I didn't learn until I was about 40 years old. And, we learn as we go along. And you've had some experiences with friends who have shared with some of these experiences with you.
Well, one friend in particular, he is one of 5 siblings, and the matriarch of the family, their mom, passed on in January. So there was all things that need to be taken care of, and there was 5 of them. So, all estate stuff and, crazy stuff. And she had real estate and apartments in Florida, and it was really, it was a pretty sizable estate. So, everybody would go through their craziness and try to get my friend, their brother, involved in it, and he just said, no, I'm not going to get involved in it. Go take care of it. This is what I would do, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but, I'm okay. So do what you want to do. And I remember they went down to Florida because there was an apartment that had to get renovated and blah, 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 and they had to evict a tenant. And the other 2 brothers were, it turned it into a real brouhaha. And they had to go knock on doors and pull people out. And you know what he did? And they were really, really upset with him. He stayed in the car, in the air conditioning, under a tree.
Oh, brilliant.
And refused to get involved in their craziness. Now, afterward they said, we really do, who are you, Yoda? But it didn't, you get to a place where other people's criticism of you doesn't affect you. You just are in a good place. And that is, I think, a wonderful place. And I think it's very important too, another lesson is to live in the moment. Because if you're living in the moment, you're not worried about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow. You're there. And if you're in the moment, you're okay. I know for me, my worst is thinking, pre-worrying of what is going to happen tomorrow. And once tomorrow comes and that thing is actually going on, it's nothing like I worried about. So why couldn't I just enjoy the moment, the people, whatever I was doing then, rather than being in my mind thinking about tomorrow or in 2 hours from now or whatever? That is just a wonderful way to alleviate some of the stress that you're feeling, is just to be where you are now.
Well, and when you talk about the be where you are now, I was trying to explain the concept of time to my little guy, Linda. It was very, very interesting because when you talk about being in the now, and staying in the present, that sounds good. Like, what is that practice really mean. And I was trying to explain this to him, and I'm like, well, see, right now, what's happening right now is like tomorrow's memory, and it's yesterday's future, and you really can get yourself all tied up in this. But the biggest thing that I took away from this was that I tried to teach them, look, don't worry about things in the future because the future's not written anything. Try not to think too much about the stuff in the past because that you can't change. So you kind of just got to stay where you are. And as simple as that was the explanation I needed for me to be able to stay in the present, because it really was tough for me to figure out, what does that really mean to stay in the present?
Yeah, whatever you're doing now. I mean, right now we're doing this radio show, and just be fully present with us doing the radio show, not thinking of what's going to be for dinner or your date later on in the evening or what's going to happen tomorrow. You're fully present with right now, just doing this radio show, and that puts you in a reasonably good place. Your focus is doing what you're doing right now, and your mind is not going crazy. You're just appreciating what you're doing right now.
Yeah. It's interesting for somebody who's a list planner. I'm always, I realized, with respect to this exercise and stuff, I am always living somewhere other than the present. Like, I'll make a list for what I need to do today. That's all future things. I'll make my schedule in the morning for all the things here's all my meetings and my calls, and what I need to do tonight. And I realized that I tend to live anywhere 3 to 15 hours ahead, sometimes weeks ahead, on a daily basis.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a schedule, so you know what's going on in your life. But when I think of all the things that I have to do, it makes me a little unnerved because there's a lot. So I don't really want to do that. I know what I have to do, but I don't want to think about what I have to do. You can make your list and then just put it away and just do what you're doing now. The list isn't going anywhere. But focusing and thinking about, oh my God, I got to do this at 4 and I got to do this at 7. Oh, I've got this call at 3. Oh my God, I got to make dinner at 7. That puts me in an anxious place. And when I'm in an anxious place, I'm not being the powerful person I can be.
So I'm going to need you to explain this a little bit better for me, because I tend to make this, I get the list part, I get the thing, but if I don't know, if I don't plan about how am I going to get, this one to soccer, that one to soccer, dinner on the table, laundry's got to get done, reports have to go out, how do you stay in the moment when you have all this stuff swirling around in your head?
Well, you believe me, this is tough for all of us. But what I'm trying to do is, yes, I know that I have to do all of these things, but I don't think about them particularly. I'm trying not to think about them until it's time to do them, and then I'm in that moment rather than, 24 hours ahead thinking of, oh my God, I've got to do that at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. How's that going to get done? Because that makes me anxious. That makes me. I don't want to feel stressed. We're all so stressed, and I'm doing whatever I can possibly do is to not have that stressed out feeling. What do I have to do to be calmer? And that is being in the moment for sure, and that is a spiritual lesson, is to be in the moment, because that's all we have. Because we're in the moment, we're not going to be thinking so much about anything else except what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I'm going to try
I told
that.
you, I'm not saying it's easy, because everything around us is stressed and people are stressed but you just have to withdraw and not get involved in other people's crazy, because God only knows we can make our own with lots left over.
Right. We have a lot of opportunity to get involved with crazy. There's crazy people all the time just waiting to, glom on and be part of what we're doing. We don't need to, we do pretty good on our own with the crazy. I love when you explain to me like what it looks like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, like with this list making stuff. I look at, I get so stressed in the day because I know how much I'm responsible for. I know how much I have to accomplish and get done. But you're right. Thinking about what I have to do at 7 o'clock really doesn't serve me when it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I could jot a note down. But I think what you're talking about is letting go. Because I think when you get anxious and you get nervous and you get stressed about your day, one of the ways you think you can control all this stuff is to prepare for it. And there's really not a whole lot you can do in your head to prepare for things unless maybe it's a presentation you're going to give and you need to practice it.
I know, but it's called control. And the more, believe me, I know this, I'm an expert at this, about the more you can plan, the more pieces you can put together, you feel you have the most control over whatever situation is going to happen. But you know what that, to me, control is fear. Fear of what happens if I don't plan every single thing. What's going to happen? It's going to blow up, and then what? But it doesn't work that way. But in our minds, we think it does, and it only makes it, it only makes it worse for us, more stressful for us, more crazy for us. So I am trying to let that go. Getting rid of control is a tough road to hoe, and that's. So I admire the people that can do it, and as I said, I am in. That's part of what I'm, working on right now for myself, because life is much sweeter when you let go, and then let go of all outcomes.
We're going to be back
do your
after
best.
the break. We're going to be back after the break. My name is Sandra Beck. This is Linda Flanken. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about setting our intentions.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
Information about book publishing is power. The power to change your authoring life and the power to change the lives of your readers. So join us for Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. You'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now. As the book shepherd, Dr. Judith Briles is in. And each week, she will include publishing professionals that will reveal tips and secrets to the author's journey. If there is a book in you want to listen, learn, and yes, call in with your questions each week. For more on Judith and what she can do for you, check out her website, thebookshepherd.com. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know, but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and The Book Shepherd, with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Are you fascinated by the stories behind the stories, the people behind their masks, the truth about people's failures and redemptions in both their business and personal lives? Then Off the Record Secrets of with host Judy Schreiner is for you. It's people's secrets that make them interesting, but very few folks are willing to reveal them unless they trust that their information will be treated with accuracy, fairness, and respect. People have been entrusting their secrets to longtime business journalist Judy Schreiner for the last 25 years, and now she's bringing her expertise and impressive contact list. Tune in and call in as host Judy Schreiner talks to guests off the record as they reveal new secrets each Tuesday at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hi, ladies. This is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and we are kicking off our Soulful Tuesday series, where we're going to bring on experts in a variety of spiritual practices, disciplines, beliefs, and advice. So both Linda and I have embarked this year on a journey that includes letting go, includes getting in touch with who we are and our essence and what we're supposed to be doing with our lives. I don't want to speak on behalf of you, Linda. That's just more for me. But part of this spiritual practice, I think, is setting intentions. What is it that you hope to find as an end result from your spiritual practice? I know I have my kind of list here, but I'd like to ask you first.
You see, I mean, even the way you put it, I don't consider it a spiritual practice. That's, that's too technical for me.
Oh.
It's just. It's getting to know yourself, who you are, what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good, and letting go. I mean, to me, that's it. If that's a practice, I mean, a practice sounds too schooly to me. So it's just, this is really important to me at this stage of my life. So I'm going to do what I can to be more peaceful, more loving, more, all of those things that feel good. I want to do the things that really feel good, because I think when you're in that feel-good place, more feel-good things happen to you. When you're in that crazy, anxious, oh, my God, place, more of the same come to you. I really do believe we're vibrational beings, and we do call upon ourselves what we send out. To the universe. We attract what we send out. So if you're sending out these good vibrations of being a good person, being happy, being excited about life, knowing what you want. I think that those gifts are delivered to you if you're in the right place to receive them. So I want to stay in the right place to receive the gifts that I know that are there.
Okay. I mean, we're different. I'm a list maker and a compulsive. I like to have a practice. I feel like when I have my workout, like I have my workout every day, and I do certain things, like my runs or walks in the park or my swimming or my weightlifting. I like to know that everything has its place. And maybe that's my control thing. Maybe that's the way I find peace in the chaos that is my daily life. So I guess a practice to me is something that feels like a relief, and it's so funny because we're so alike in so many ways and so different in a lot of ways too. But I know with my schedule, if a practice isn't put in or a technique isn't put into my day, I'll soon get swallowed up in what is the, train wreck of the day or the disaster of my life. So I have to actually schedule these things in, just like I schedule my teeth cleaning, my mammogram, my haircuts, my manicures and pedicures. I can't seem to keep all that stuff in my head. So, and I don't think I'm as far down on the path as most spiritual people where, I can find that calm space. I think I need a ritual to get me to my calm space, whether it's a bath or a long walk or some music to get me in that space, just enough to calm down from my usual high level of activity.
It is we're all individuals, and we're all different. We're all got our differences, and so whatever works for you. That's there's no good or bad here. It's whatever works for you. That's the bottom line. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to please anybody. If you go to that place, and if when you're walking, or I walk my dog Lucy in the morning in the park, that it feels good. That's the bottom line. Does it feel good? Are you in a good place when you're doing that particular thing? Because the more things that you can do that keep you in that good place, your day's going to be a hell of a lot better.
That's right. That's right. You know, when I've been in some really toxic situations, really realistically, in the past few months, what's helped me a lot was to get into that good place.
Yeah, and if you again, we're going into Rasha's book for next week. But if you believe that if you look at life as a movie that you're just watching without getting so involved in everything, it's just a movie. I don't know what's real and not real anymore. The more I read about spirituality, I'm not sure what I think is real is not real, and what I think is not real is real. So you kind of figure it out as you go. But if life is a movie and you're just a player in the movie, watch it. See what happens. Don't get so embroiled in everything. And that is a wonderful lesson. And again, not an easy one, but certainly a very beneficial one. Because what does it all mean? We're here for a very, very short period of time. Actually just to spit. So let's not get so crazy about every little thing that happens. It's a movie. It's a movie of your life, and you want to make it a happy movie.
Right, you want to make it a happy movie, but I think you said something really profound. Is like you can't let every little detail of your life drive you crazy. And there are so many people that I work with, so many people that I know, or even in my family or my close sphere of influence, that can get driven crazy by the smallest thing. And I know that little things like that can drive me nuts, and then I can sail through like a huge crisis like nobody's business. So I'm, backwards in a lot of respects, but I think you're right. Finding that whether you want to call it spiritual practice, inner peace, oneness, there's a lot of different words out there, and that's good because, words mean different things to different people. And that's the one thing. When I was reading these books, there was one author, and she'll be on, so I'll tell her that I appreciated this. She had a little appendix in the back that defined how she used certain words. Because when you say spirituality, that can mean a lot of things. Some people think it's religion. Some people think it's woo-woo, So even just in the communication of these complex thoughts and trying to express yourselves, you can use one word that skews your whole viewpoint or brings in information that may or may not be correct. So you're right.
Well,
it's interesting.
I think we're all spiritual beings, whether people admit it or not, and that is the biggest part of us. That's who we are. So a lot of people think it's woo-woo or that it doesn't. But when you start to do some of the things that the spiritual teachings offer, you find your life just becomes better.
Yeah. Well,
so,
and I don't know, like. I was going to chime in here, even if your life doesn't get better, like I still feel like I'm swimming in this high conflict divorce stuff. But what's changed is I can go to sleep at night. I don't agonize over, I don't think over every little detail and worry. And, I can put this stuff to bed where it needs to go to bed so that I can go to bed, or I can advocate or volunteer for my kids' thing and not be so worn out by my own thinking.
Yeah. It is just amazing what we do to ourselves. I mean, that internal chatter, that ego that is always lashing us constantly. You're never good enough. It's never this. It's never that. I mean, our egos are they're a terror. So if we could put the ego to rest, our lives become so much more satisfying because we're not always going around lashing ourselves for the things that we think we're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's our ego that's always that our ego wants to be a number up front, one and center, and it when we go into that calmness, when we go into that happy place, when we go into our heart center, the ego is powerless and it does not like that. It's always fighting and screaming to be there running our lives.
Right,
so
and it's the one that's
taming the beast.
Right, because the ego is the one that's offended. The ego is the one that's hurt. The ego is the one that needs to be heard. You know, most of the time, you know, and it's funny.
And what does the ego want? And how do we get into so many problems? We always, and I know this, I'm talking for myself because I know it too. I want to be right at all costs. And what does that do when you want to be right at all costs? It makes your life miserable because you're always what difference does it make? Let somebody else be right, and you don't have the conflicts. You want to be right, you're always going to have conflicts.
Right, you're always going to, and you're going to crush the people around you who care about you.
Yes. So you know you just and sometimes you just watch yourself, watch your behavior, and how you spring into action automatically. Because I do it all the time. I say, "Oh my God, this is terrible," and I cut it. You know, I really cut it off at the knees because when you're aware and you look and you say, "Oh my God, how can I stand myself if I'm acting like this? And how can anybody else stand me if I'm acting like this?"
Right. Right.
It's interesting. It's going to be an interesting 10 weeks, honey.
It is. I'm so excited, you know, because every time I learn more about myself, and even in the discussion that we had today, you know, it raises more questions than it answers, but that's a good thing because I'm happy to be at the point in my life where I don't know it all. I don't pretend to know it all. People don't think I know it all, and I can just exist in peace. Linda, it's been a pleasure. Yes, just be. Be, not do. That's right. We're going to be, not do. It's been a great pleasure to share the show with you today. Next week, we're going to bring Rasha on. She's written a couple of books, Journey to Oneness and Oneness. They're great, big, thick books that are awful to try to get through, but you'll be glad you did. I know I'm working my way through it. Linda is also reading it. She's going to come on next week. I think you're really going to like what she has to say. I know as we go on this journey together, you and Linda and we're just going to be better for it. We're going to build stronger families, stronger relationships, stronger friendships, and we're going to find that inner peace that we all seem to be searching for. For Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin, this is Powered Up Talk Radio. We'll catch you next week.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and prominent career, is the brains behind the Real Cougar Woman. She shares her wisdom, grace, and laugh-out-loud opinions based on her stellar successes, both in the financial world and in her personal life. Check out our website, poweredupwithbeckandfranklin.com, and join us next week for another great conversation. We're here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on Toginet.com.